Good morning, traders. Hope everyone's doing good and you had a great weekend. Got the holidays going on, of course, in the Eurozone. Swiss holiday, Euro holiday, Great British Pound Bank holiday, of course. Markets are a little bit reserved because of that. Stock markets in the U.S. just opened, though, a couple of minutes ago, and we're seeing a little bit of positivity overall. Slight upward movement in the U.S. stock market. Dow's up about 18, S&P's up about 5, NASDAQ's up about 21 points. Hope you're doing all good. Nice to see you all here in the room. So let's take a look at some of the trades. This is the one that we were in last week. I should say I was in. I think some of you were in it. I had the two trades here. Actually, I had a small one as well. Let me pull that up here. I had that small one that closed negative. Let me just show you where it's at. Where am I? Here it is. There we go. So I had these two orders on, the two larger orders on Euro Pound short. Closed them out here for about 35, 36 pips average, depends on which one you take, 38 or 39 on the first, and about 30 on the second. And then I put on that real small order. I think this was a 0.4 or something like that. And that one closed out minus 20. But overall, it was a good trade. Had some nice profits over it. I think the one trade, if I look here, was 300 and the one was 5 or 490 or something like that. The loser was, the small loser was at, let's see, where is it? 95 bucks. Not bad. Not a bad trade. I currently am short again on the Euro Pound. As you can see here on the 15-minute time frame, the Euro Pound trade is down about 5 pips right now. My stops are way up high. I'll put a little mark on here so you can see where they're at. About 84.70. I don't have a profit level set on this Euro Pound trade to the downside, although my target is going to be at the at this gap here from when the market gapped up a lot this last week. So I have roughly a 35 pip stop and about a 54, 55 pip take profit on the Euro Pound short. Not 100% convinced on this trade, but we are coming up into some potential resistance levels here on the Euro Pound. So I'm okay with it. We're sitting right where these wicks came in before. So again, we got the bank holidays going on. I'm not saying that's an excuse, but it's a little more quiet here with the euro versus the pound. I took a Euro Aussie short as well. That's doing a lot better than that one last night. Let me get something that looks decent. Here we go, 30-minute. All right. If I go to the hourly, you can see the trade we had last week. Took 120 pips off to the upside. This one, I guess we can leave it on this time frame on the hourly. I currently went short let me pull up my terminal here just to give you the exact numbers. First order is short at 145.508. And the second order I just put on not too long ago was short at 144.957. Stops on both are at 145.33, 145.32. Let me show you the numbers a little bit more in detail here. I'll turn that off here. Actually, let me get rid of this. I just like to put these tags on here so that you can see a little bit better where my numbers are at. Not that they have to match yours or that you're even in the trade at all, but just so you at least know where I'm at with things. Keep it all transparent, open, honest here. So this trade's doing pretty good. I'm 70 pips or so profit. I have 1.5 lots on that one, and that's up 7.59. The second order that I just put on here this morning is up 84 bucks or so. Currently about 15 pips. And yeah, one lot on the first, 1.5 on the second. I'm sorry, 1.5 on the first, 1 on the second, as you can see here. Whenever I add into a winner, I always use smaller orders. I don't ever add to losers. If you just don't do that, that will save you a lot of money overall. That can be one simple rule of trading. Just don't ever add to a loser, and that will make you some profits and save you some losses over the course of your career right away. Whenever I add to a winner, I always pull the stops down beneath break even. I like to keep the risk the same or less than I had on the first trade. So in other words, if I sell at 45.50 here, once I get a decent amount of profit, I will put on another order and move the stops down on both of them. So the risk overall is still less than what I had on the first trade by itself. And over the years, that's tend to work pretty well for me. I don't have a target set right now on the Euro Aussie. I was looking at some fibs earlier, and this is the line here at 1.4008. I was looking at some fibs earlier, and we already broke beneath the 23.6. It'd be nice to get it way down in after this gap here, but we're talking hundreds of pips from that. So I'm going to leave this run for a little while. Again, this is a 4-hour time frame here. My plan is if we get roughly 25 to 30 pips more move to the downside, or for my first order anyway, around 144.57, somewhere in this area, I'd be comfortable moving my stops back down so that there is no risk even on the second order. Not quite sure if I'll add another third order or not. Usually I don't go much more than 3. Sometimes I'll go 4. Rarely 5, but just make them tiny at the end. Again, that's just my own strategy there. If you look at the daily, this is where we're at. I could see some confluence of price action coming in here with the wicks, maybe the 50% fib. Depends if you want to be aggressive or conservative with the trade. Nice. Let's go on Potter. We'll take a look at Euro Dollar. Lyndon, hey, Julman. We'll take a look at Dollar CAD for sure. Class, art. Please, Euro Dollar. That's good. We'll take a look and see what we got. So Euro Pound, you know where I'm at. I'm short on it. Not 100% convinced. Euro Aussie to the downside is looking good. I had a couple of traders looking at Euro Yen here this morning. And if you remember where we're at on this, Euro Yen currently has this strong level of resistance, this descending trend line coming down, and we're poking right near the top of that again. So where's it going to go from here? You know, all bets are off here. I'm not real convinced either way. And you can always see my own humble opinion sort of about where I'm at with the market because I put trades on. If the ones I really feel confident about or the ones that I feel at least the risk is muted and there's more potential reward for the risk, I will get in the trade. I'm not currently in the Euro Yen, although, you know, not the worst area to be going counter trend, you know, because your stop could be pretty small. However, we'll have to see. I had a friend of mine on Facebook, Instant Messenger, who's been sort of hanging in this Euro Yen thinking, is it going to bust out? I mean, everything on the 15-minute is saying it's going up, right? We have higher highs, we have higher lows, we have a rising trend line. We're poking around resistance, trying. So Euro Yen is really sort of a little bit nerve-wracking right here if you're short. But if you're going to get short with a counter trend, if you're a contrarian type trader, it's a great time to be taking even a scalp to the downside in the Euro Yen. I mean, we're talking 100 and some pips even to get back down to this level at 120.60s. So my overall bias on the Euro Yen, I'm mixed. I think it will push higher, but I also see a little bit of Euro weakness coming in here, which is what I've been playing on the Euro Pound and the Euro Aussie. We'll take a look at Dollar CAD next. You remember this from last week. I was telling you that the pattern that I dislike the most to trade is this expanding wedge or this megaphone pattern. I put a buy limit in here, and we never got down to it. We're currently around how many pips up from there? 40-some pips up from that. I still think the Canadian dollar is going to be weak. I didn't see any new news come out over the weekend regarding the dairy issue with the U.S. and Canada and imports here in the U.S. or the softwood lumber 20% import tax that the U.S. is putting on. I didn't see any updates on that kind of stuff over the weekend. So I still think that I like a weak Canadian dollar. Don't know if we're going to get back down to my buy stop. I might get rid of that, but we'll leave it on for now. I wanted to look at crude with you as well. Crude is continuing to push lower again, 48.84. Take a look at the daily, see where we're at here. We had this rejection candle. I'll zoom in here real big for you. We had this rejection candle, this sort of needle or pin bar, if you will. Then we had the doji of indecision on crude, and now we're starting to push down again. So technically, this pattern on crude would be saying that we should be going to the upside, and now we're having this daily candle pushing down. So really a lot of downward pressure for oil. And as you may know, that's closely related to the Canadian dollar as well. So I still think the Canadian dollar is going to weaken. Here's our play on the Euro CAD from last week. We had this wedge. And I drew these lines on here. I don't know if you can see those. I drew this line here. This one is supposed to be on an angle, but you get the idea. And it played out pretty well. You know, I drew the lines over here, I think. It went up, came back down, continued up. Not exactly in this time frame, but I still like EuroCAD to the upside. The thing about EuroCAD is the thing is so darn overbought. You know, this is really extended out. And if you look back in history, if we go back, let's minimize our chart out a little bit. You know, this move on the EuroCAD to the upside has been basically 850 or 900 pips. We've seen that happen before, and it's continued up. You know, we're going way back 2015 here, but we've seen it continue to move. So based on the past, this should start to push down and have some type of retracement. But based on the past also, we could continue up. So overall, just to make it real clear, I'm definitely bearish on the Canadian dollar. So I would be buying anything in relation to the Canadian dollar right now. I don't know if we're going to have a lot of movement in the market until tomorrow, or at least later on tonight. Let's take a look at the euro dollar, see what it looks like. Euro dollar, if you recall my charts last time, we had this little gray box here, if you remember that. I think it was somewhere like this. And my plan was to really not get too involved in the euro dollar until we got some bearing out of this gray box, because we have the huge gap that everybody's watching and everybody knows about. And my trade plan was very, very simple. If it continued to push up above this gray box and retest continue to go long, if it did pierce down beneath this wick, now this wick is right at 80, 1082, 108.20. So if this price point on the euro dollar would push beneath this wick, then I'd be on full gear selling this thing down, because you know what happens? It's the herding mentality, the psychology of people in groups. It's some really interesting psychology. If you haven't heard of it, I think a lot of you have, but if you haven't heard of that, just Google it up a little bit and take a look. The herding mentality of people, or the herding mentality of groups. Because when people see something that's sort of apparent, they all want to get in on it. And I think, you know, people are watching this gap to fill. If it does start to fill, I think we're going to see increased momentum to the downside until the gap fills. And then from that point, we'll have to reassess. So I'm bullish on the euro dollar unless it breaks beneath 108.20. Now, 108.20 is quite a ways away. I mean, we're talking 90 pips, 100 pips from here. Drew in this rising trend line here last time. It's still in effect on the Euro USD. We also have the support level that we talked about last time, which is this wick that was put in on March 27th. And that is at about 109.05. We'll just call it 109, the even number. And we're still sitting above this. So right now, if you have to be trading the euro dollar, the only way I'd be trading it would be to the upside. I like euro dollar to the upside. If it gets back down, and it keeps going up, but if it gets back down into this gray area, I'm just going to let it chop around. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the euro USD right now. I know it's the most commonly traded pair. A lot of traders want to look at it because it's, you know, that's what people trade a lot. The spreads are usually the lowest. The commissions are usually the smallest. It's one of the least expensive pairs, if not, depending on your broker, it should be the least expensive pair to trade. So the cost of doing business with the euro USD is relatively low compared to others. So that's my trade plan on Euro USD. Wait on it. If you have to trade it, go long. If we get back into this gray zone here, I would be sitting on your hands waiting. If it drops beneath 108.20, I'd be looking to sell this thing pretty intensely. So it's not the best trade plan, but that's why I'm not in it. I like it to the upside, and there's a lot of reasons why, but one of the reasons, of course, is the DXY, the dollar index. We're still under a lot of pressure to the downside on the DXY, currently at 98.86. All of our areas of potential support on the daily chart have been broken all the way down. If you want to see a messy candlestick pattern, take a look at this here. The daily on the DXY. 6 days of just pure undecision. Excuse me. So where's it going to go from here? I think most people in the trading world think it will go down. I think that the dollar is under pressure. However, I'm not convinced enough to be on either side right now. And that's why I'm avoiding the euro dollar, which makes up most of the DXY, of course. So again, I was just chatting with Andrew just a little bit on Skype before this, just back and forth chatting, not talking. And he even said the same thing. You know, there's just not a lot right now with the holiday. I mean, there's some trades like the Euro Aussie is doing well. Euro Aussie is probably one of the, at least from the charts I watch, probably the best trade so far. We're seeing the yens come a little bit back. Let's take a look at Andrew's strength meter here, the momentum meter, because I think it's a great thing to look at, especially on days like today where the market's a little bit lower liquidity. We have the dollar. That's the weakest. We have the euro under pressure and the pound, which is making my euro pound just sort of grind along. But we see the Aussie and the New Zealand as the strongest two currencies. And you'll usually see the Aussie and New Zealand fairly close hand in hand a lot of the times. Not always, obviously, because they're different currencies, different countries, hence the Aussie-New Zealand trade. But you can see the correlation between the Aussie and the New Zealand and the euro and the pound here. So this meter, just looking at it in hindsight here, is saying Aussie dollar long, Euro Aussie short, and pretty mixed here on the yens, but we're seeing some strength come in. If we look over at the lines here, which is the deviation from the 20 moving average, which is this zero line, the strongest currency pair right now is the Australian dollar, at least on the hourly time frame, but it's being closely followed by the New Zealand. Those are the two that are right up here. Aussie at the top, New Zealand a close second. And the weakest currency is the Great British Pound. The yen is turning just a little bit. So, you know, it's a little bit of consolidation here. The only real clarity we're getting here is the Aussie strength and New Zealand strength. If we take a look at the Aussie New Zealand, you can see the upward trend that we've had. This is the 4-hour time frame. Here's the daily. This is a pair I don't trade very much. A lot of people do. Very nice upward trend here. Very, very nice. Where's it going to go from here? I can't tell you for sure. I do not know. I do not follow it too closely. I'll tell you where the Euro Aussie can go, though. That's down to the floor. Those two trades currently up around 900 bucks. Euro pound is down about 150. I really like my Euro Aussie trades when they correlate with the Euro pound, of course, because that gives me at least some consistency with the Euro strength or weakness across the board. We're seeing Euro yen starting to poke down just a little bit here. 121.81. I mean, if you're a risk taker and you're not afraid to be selling something, I mean, this is a really, you could have a tight stop on this and a lot potential. I mean, you could be at a 5-to-1 risk to reward. Put your stop at 20, 25 pips and your take profit way down here at 100. But not to sound like a broken record, but over the years I've been trading, that type of trading, even though it can be exciting and profitable and low risk, it just does not work for me in the short term or medium term. I don't think we can skip an analysis here today without looking at gold. If I go back out here, yeah, let's do this. Gold, you may remember I had some lines drawn to the upside on gold. Gold was moving up nicely until last night they voted to fund the U.S. government and keep government open. For those of you not in the U.S., I don't know exactly what your government does when it's at a gridlock, but here in the U.S., I mean, they'll literally shut the government down if they can't come to an agreement. It's happened before, although not that long, at least in my lifetime, and I'm in my 40s. But what happened was gold was moving up. That vote came in. They decided, hey, we're going to keep the government open. We came to at least somewhat of an agreement, and the risk basically came back out of the market, and gold tumbled back down right into our gray area of support. This gray box here is 1261 to about 1264. So what do we do at this point? I still feel like gold to the upside is the trade to be on. There's a bunch of reasons here. We have the upward trend line on the daily. I think we talked about that last time, this upward trend line, upward trend. We have the strong area of support here. In this gray box, if you go all the way back, it touches on the wicks over here that were put in on March 27th and April 4th. So technically speaking, I like gold to the upside. Would have went really nicely aside from that vote last night, but those are the things it's hard to predict those things. You really can't. It's got to trade the charts, trade what you see. We have ISM manufacturing PMI coming out of the US here in about 6 or 7 minutes. Excuse me. And then we have Treasury Secretary Mnuchin speaking. He was on last week a couple times and moved the market a little bit, 9:45. So that's going to be in about an hour from now, just a little under. And then, of course, we have the big news on the RBA, cash rate out of Australia, some news out of China. Everything I've heard, all the sort of talking heads, blogs, news feeds, I mean, pretty much everything that I've read and that I know is saying that the Australian dollar is going to stay at 1.5% interest rate. It's going to stay the same, so it should be unchanged. Of course, we have to watch for that statement that comes out at the same time to see if there's any hints of a cut or a increase. But the cash rate should remain unchanged at 1.5%. U.S. stock markets are coming down just a little. I mean, we're still positive, but just by the slightest bit, 0.02%. I mean, basically flat. Pretty quiet in the U.S. stock market. Right now, I think if you're just to back up and look at your charts and look at your accounts and trade what you see, what you're seeing right now is Australian dollar strength. So I'd be selling it versus the Aussie, versus the euro, like I am here, short euro Aussie, or buying Aussie dollar. All right, that's one way to look at it. We have this really, really tight area of resistance on the euro yen that we covered. I think euro yen is poised to move up because of the yen weakness, and basically the risk is basically on in the market. So we're going to see the yen pairs, I think, weaken still, which will raise the yen the yen pairs. So Japanese yen, I think, will weaken, raising the pairs, euro yen, pound yen, dollar yen, up higher. However, really, there's a lot of resistance at 122 on the euro yen. So again, possible scalp to the downside there. I do like euro weakness. Pound, I'm very mixed on. I'm still feeling like the pound will be a stronger currency in the next few days, but I'm very mixed on that. And then, of course, Aussie strength is coming in. And it's really interesting how a week can change things, right? Last week, it was all about the weakness in the Aussie, weakness in New Zealand. And now it's just sort of flipped over the weekend. You know, you can only push things so far before they bounce back a little. I was looking with another trader earlier today on this nice triple bottom that we put in, sort of head and shoulders pattern on the Aussie dollar here. And what we did is just the typical, draw in the neckline here, measure the head back to the neckline, which is about 52 pips, give or take a few, and you take your target up about 52 pips, that'd put the target at about 75.40, 75.42. Somewhere right around this area on the Aussie dollar. And that would be just a good old-fashioned head and shoulders pattern price projection. We take the lowest point, which is the head, to the neckline, and we transpose it out as a target. And we're currently only about 10 pips, maybe 12 from that target right now. I think those of you who trade the Australian dollar realize that these hourly candlesticks where they're straight up, are due for some retracement. However, the move still is not that big. But we are seeing the selling pressure at least coming out. We're also looking at a descending trend line here on the Aussie dollar. We had that coming up here, which if we pull our chart over to the side, we can see if this price does consolidate just a little bit, we could see this line possibly coincide with this target and then see a possible area to be short on the Aussie dollar. So again, this is a 4-hour time frame here. I'm not confident enough. I don't see quite enough reward to the upside right now. I see more reward to the downside on the Euro Aussie. I like to give you some fundamental views as well, like I did on the Canadian dollar. It's pretty much common knowledge now since last week, of course, but I don't have a lot of cutting edge information to give you just because the market's pretty quiet. I was looking through the news feeds, and if I look at my financial juice, which is what I use along with Twitter, this is the type of headlines we have. New Zealand dollar climbs to sessions highs. Euro yen halted ahead of 122. U.S. final manufacturing PMI, numbers coming up. FOMC and NFP is going to be a big week this week. Stuff like that. So, that's how it is. It's not that I'm not giving you what I know. It's just that there's not a lot to give you right now. I'm currently making money in my trades, and that's really all I have to it. Euro Aussie short, Euro pound stuck. Let's see what happens on this news. We'll see what happens in the markets in real time here. It's going to be out in 20-some seconds. Sorry, I haven't looked at the chat a lot here. Look at Euro Aussie dollar. Did that. I usually keep a closer eye on the chat, but today I was trying to keep my focus here. Sorry. Strong support on gold, 1260. Yeah, you got that one, you serve. How's it going? Here comes the news. $54.8. So the ISM is lower than expected. Previous was 57.2. They expected 56.6. We came in at 54.8. So that is not good for the US dollar. Minus 0.2% construction spending as well. Not a lot of reaction though. At least not, impulse. We had that, basically gold is where we got most of the jump here. I think the most difficult currency to trade at least for me in the short-term, moderate term is the US dollar. Because you get news events like this, even though they're not, huge news events, it's a high-impact news event out of the US dollar. You get the news that's bad for the USD, right? So you think USD is going to weaken, but that's not really what happens, because the worse news we get out of the USD, the more likely they are to increase interest rates in the US. So you have to be sort of prepared for that inverse relationship to the result of the news. It's something to think about. Let's see, further weakness in yen. New Zealand CAD. I don't watch New Zealand CAD yet. What is the Euro Aussie TP? I don't have a Euro Aussie TP. That was the one we covered. Maybe you were on just a little bit late. I'm not sure, but we talked about that earlier. And I didn't have a take profit. I don't have one set up here. We were looking at maybe price action at the 50% fib retracement of the whole move up, which would be 43.16. The 50% fib also correlated nicely with this swing high that we had here. That was put in on March 27th. So I don't have a take profit level yet. I think an aggressive take profit, an aggressive target, which would be one that would make sense, would be right in this gray box here, which is the 50% fib retracement of the whole move to the upside. And also, if we pause our chart here and move it to the left, we see this black line here right at the top. If we watch that black line, that's also the 50%, that'd be 43.10. Now that's a long ways. I mean, we're talking 170 pips from now. We also, the reason I say it's a little bit conservative and not aggressive as far as a profit target is, I still feel like this gap, may fill. So if we get to this point, I think instead of a profit target, I'll be pulling my stops down closer and extending my target back down to the bottom of the gap, which would be 42.20s. That would be an amazing trade. I mean, if this thing, if we can pull it 200 and some pips, that'd be an amazing trade, especially on the back of, buying it on the other side. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Very good, thanks. Got it. Yeah, SoCal Trader, thank you. You got it. Dollar's been garbage since January 1st, yeah. What happened in copper? I don't watch copper. I know some of you do. I don't watch it. You got to say in each. Juan Pablo thinks the euro is going to strengthen towards the end of the week. That could be. Nice spike on the metals, absolutely. What do you think about pound dollar today? The reason I haven't talked much about pound dollar is that my overall bias on it hasn't changed, but it's technically not at a level for me to take much action. And there's a few reasons why. Here's a few of them, just in a nutshell. If you look to the left on the daily time frame, all right, we broke above. Now, if you look at this gray area here, we broke above this potential resistance that was put in way back in July of last year. We also broke above the next swing lows that were put in August of last year. And then we broke above this wick, which was also at the top of this gray zone. This gray zone is about 100 pips long. And if I just throw some levels up here so you can see them a little easier on your chart, 129, well, it's not exact, but we'll call it 129. And 127.96, we'll call it 128. So 128 to 129, we're above this area, and I am very bullish on the pound dollar, but I'm just not. You remember when I was talking about the currency strength, and I see euro weakness coming in, pound I'm mixed on. It's the same with the pound dollar. I feel like the pound dollar, if you have to get in on a trade, I think the only way to take this is to the upside. There's just a lot of strong support coming up. You can see we bounced off of that gray area, 129, nice psychological number. Outside of it being important with the support and resistance when we look to the left, there's just a lot of reasons to be long pound dollar. I'm just not convinced enough to take a trade to the upside. I'm not quite convinced enough. I'd rather play it against something like the euro, even though that's sort of going sideways right now as well. I think we just have to wait. I mean, when Andrew and I chatted, I think we said it the best. You just got to give the market a little bit of time here and not rush it. But if I were to take a trade on the pound dollar, or if you're in a trade, I think the upside is the only safe way to be. I like pound dollar to the upside. You know, if we can push up a little bit higher and set in a little bit more support higher up, I think that a reasonable stop would be able to be used here. But again, the reason I'm not in this trade, I think, is pretty straightforward. I know my bias is to the upside. I do like pound strength, but I'm not quite sure on the USD. So I avoid the pound dollar and trade something like the euro pound, for example, or the pound Aussie. But on the pound dollar, even though you know your bias, it doesn't mean you're going to get in on a trade, because you got to have a controlled stop. You got to have somewhat of an estimated target on the upside. And if we look to the left and zoom way out on our charts, where's our target on this? You know, we already broke through the left. I mean, our target is, you know, there's really no resistance coming up and for 400, 500 pips. So I don't have a clear target. We're still in a pretty darn strong downtrend on the weekly and the monthly. We got 400 or 500 pips to go. So the way that I look at it is like this. You know, our targets to the upside on the pound dollar are hundreds of pips up, right? Hundreds of pips to the upside. And right now, we're just sitting above the support level. And I don't like the US dollar uncertainty right now. So I'm just sort of speaking my mind out loud, unrehearsed, as you can tell. But I'm just not confident enough to be long pound dollar. If you're going to trade it, that's where I would see it going. I think you'd be much more beneficial to be trading the euro versus the pound, or even take the stronger currency like the pound and trade it against something really weak like the Canadian. Pound CAD had a huge move to the upside. We talked about this last week. I mean, the pound CAD has moved up 1,100 pips. And I still feel like it's going to continue to the north. Look, the Canadian dollar is under a lot of pressure. There's just a lot of pressure under the CAD. So I think selling the CAD is a good play. Even buying the euro CAD. Buying the euro CAD, good idea. And here in the last, few minutes, we're seeing that weakening of the US dollar. And we still have a short 5-minute chart rise of the dollar CAD, just to show you how weak the thing is. Crude is pushing down even more. So if you're going to get in on a trade right now, I mean, you can jump on with me if you want it on the Euro Aussie short. I think Euro CAD, Pound CAD to the upside are great trades. Dollar CAD up. Dollar CAD not as exciting though. Dollar CAD's going to, I think, chop around for a while. Euro CAD, Pound CAD, better. The big one that a lot of people are watching are the Euro Yen and that strong level of resistance. I think that's interesting. We had this beautiful line on silver. And this is one of the reasons why I like trading silver more than gold. It just tends to move a lot more fluidly. I mean, if you just take a glance up, I know a lot of you are probably doing your own thing here, but if you take a look up at your chart for just a moment, this is the hourly time frame on silver. I mean, you can't, obviously it's in hindsight, but you can't get much more straightforward than that. I mean, that's just from the top left of your screen to the straight down to the bottom right with very little deviation. So if you're not a silver trader, my advice is to take a look into it. In the premium room, the last few months, when we were talking December, January, February, in the premium room, I was doing a lot more trading in silver and doing pretty well. I mean, silver's very, very nice metal to trade. Just make sure you look at your brokers to see what a pip is worth and how the margin and leverage works. Maybe try it in a demo first. Cool. Yeah. Sanage, there is no premium room, just so you know. We got rid of it. Everything's combined. UAK Pan. We covered Euro Yen right at the beginning, I remember. Tom says, just came back. How long is the stream up? The stream's up forever. All you have to do is click on where it says upcoming streams. It says upcoming and catch up. Right next to my name at the top. You click that little thing and drop down will come down. And then you click the little colored box, little toggle button, and you can see all the previous streams. So it'll be up forever. So I'm going to leave you at that for now, everybody. I'm going to be back probably in about 5 hours. Have to run out, get some stuff done outside of the office here. And we'll see how these trades play out. Again, I'm only short Euro Pound and Euro Aussie right now. I'm tempted to get short on Euro Yen just because the risk is so small. But the markets are not telling me that that's a relatively reproducible bet. So I'm going to stay out of that for now. I will see you all later on. Hope you have a great day and be safe. Take care.